Hello, lovely keyboard people. No, no, no. I need coffee before this. Oof, oof. Yeah, let's get some coffee. Hello, keyboard enjoyers. Hello, keyboard touchers. My name is Simon. This is my review of the Arc 60 by Vertex. Now, the Arc 60 is a relatively simple 60% made by Vertex. You may recognize them as they're the same guys that made the Angle. And we'll see a lot of similarities in terms of the mounting style and whatnot within this same board. It's a nice, simple, cheap 60. It was available in stock at $265, which included 2 PCBs and 1 plate, which technically allows you to make 2 builds, which we'll discuss. It's available in a bunch of colors, as is customary. You've got blue, white, gold, black, purple, rose gold, and like a very light green. It's a simple 7-degree angle with a 19.4 millimeter adjusted front height, so real front height. And yeah, it's a cute little 60. It has a little bit of layout support. The solder version handles ISO and all of that. And knowing Vertex, there will be future rounds of this, and hopefully they'll, once again, take my input, I guess. So yeah, this is it. I'm not a big 60 enjoyer. A lot of you guys know that. So keep that in mind as we go through this video, but I will do my best. I will be as fair as possible. So on that note, roll the intro. Here we are with the board, but we're not going to look at the board. First things first, we're going to talk about the unboxing experience. So the Arc actually comes in a very cool box. Here it is. Kind of looks like a fancy bottle of something. It's quite cool. There's information here, specifically the layout, the vendor. There's a QC sticker, and up top here we can see the color, navy, and it tells us what plate we have. It says aluminum, or for you non-Americans, aluminium. But yeah, this is quite cool. You guys know my feelings about fancy boxes, which instead of complaining for 30 minutes, I'm just going to tell you, this is garbage. This is literally going to go in the garbage. Please give me a hard case, okay? Please. All right, so it opens up from the top, and everything just slots in. So the keyboard goes here. You've got your tools or your parts. They go in there, right? Board goes in there. Plate and PCBs go there. Here's my hot swap PCB, which I never intend on using because hot swap. Here is the plate that actually came with it. This is a very nice dark gray, but it's also very reflective. So if I angle it, it'll pick up the exact color of the light above. So it's nice and shiny. And yeah, so everything comes in here. There's a nice little touch in which they include a little screwdriver here. It's a tiny little Stanley screwdriver. The bit is the correct size for all of the screws, so we're going to be using that during our teardown. All right, let's get all this crap out of the way. Honestly, again, this is very cool, but for the price of this, this looks expensive to produce. Just give us a hard case. Give us a hard case as an option. Give us a hard case as an option, Oop. All right, the last thing that came with mine was this. This does not come in the box. This does not come in the kit. This is the iFoam Pro Max. It's the foam kit. So Vertex did something that I consider incredibly progressive and incredibly intelligent, which is offer foam at a small price. I think the kit was like $5. Make it very clear that The keyboard does not need the foam, but if you want the foam, you can pay and get the foam. So this foam was sent to me, and I will never use this foam. All right. So before we get into the board, let's get the nitty-gritty out of the way. As is customary, I don't have sponsors. I don't take free review units. That means I don't get to keep this. If I want to keep this, I have to pay retail price for it. And we'll discuss later in the video whether or not I actually want to do that. I will tell you now that the keyboard is lit. So yeah, let's start from the top and work our way down. All right, I apologize. My hands are going to be really, really, really sweaty. And one of the first things that you're going to notice, if you've ever seen pictures of this board by anyone, it is very fingerprinty. The anodization is incredibly fingerprinty. Also, there's like a little like wet line that's been there since I got it, and I tried washing it and it didn't work, but it's fingerprinty. So enjoy it while you can. I guess we'll look at the quality of the anodization now before I ruin it with my fingers. Let's have a look at the macro cam. It's a very, very nice navy. It's a very, very nice navy. Honestly, it's a fantastic navy. Look at it. Now, in terms of the design styling, normally I don't talk much about design styling unless the board is actually doing something. This board is actually doing something. Now, they named it the arc because of like geometric arcs and whatnot, and they followed that theme. And, you know, there's a nice little curvature here. Nice to see. As well as back here. There's some nice curves on it. There's some nice curves on it. Like all of this is just slightly bowed. It's very nice. It's very clean. The anodization is flawless. In terms of execution, in terms of do I like this specific like feel and look of ano? Not really, because again, very fingerprinty. It is very smooth. It is very consistent. I don't see any splashing. I don't see any striping. I don't see any of any visual indications of the source aluminum itself having any issues. So looks pretty good. Again, though, super fingerprinty. So the second you pick it up, you're gonna ruin it. All right. So you guys get the gist of, hey, it's got lots of curves. It's very curvy. It's essentially a seamless design where the top sits fully over the bottom. You can obviously see the bottom from the side, but there's no visible seam anywhere. Therefore, it is seamless. And generally, I am a fan of Korean proportions on keyboards. So that means like an 8mm top and bottom lip and about 4 to 5 millimeters on the side. This is closer to like 9mm on the side, 13mm on the front, and it looks like 9mm on the top as well. It's a little bezel-y. Now, traditionally, I don't like big bezels, but on a board this small, it kind of works. And honestly, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I respect it. I respect that designers should have input on what their design should be like. And if you personally do not like that design, then obviously don't buy the keyboard. But in this case, I do like the design. It's simple, it's clean, and let's check out all the sides. So what we've got is basically a chamfer going all the way across the board. And then in the front, we have a nice chamfered lip. We consider that in the field as a pog chamfer. And then in terms of the back, again, chamfer all the way around, all the way around, all the way around, all the way around. It's kind of like the KBD Fans 5 degree. You remember that one with like the big chamfer on it? It's like that, but not terrible, basically. It's a good implementation. And if we check out the bottom, it's very different. Instead of chamfers, we're dealing with a nice subtle curve all the way across. We've got this curve here and the curve on the back, and they kind of meet together to create a magical, happy curve, which kind of looks like the logo, which is pretty cool. While we're here on the macro cam, let me show you the little engraving here on the back, right there. Give me a second. Okay, camera, hello. Do you want to focus on the object? That'd be great. Right there. All right, we'll just do it in overhead. I apologize. I'm just having my morning coffee now, and I assume my macro cam has not had its morning coffee. All right, the small little engraving there of the same logo that is here. Let me try and bring that up. There you go. You guys see that? Very subtle. That is the only engraving on the entire board. While we're here, we can check out the USB port. Now, I am mostly a fan of flush USB, whereas this is inset. So this does use a daughter board, which means theoretically it could have been placed closer to the edge. But my concern stems from, will my connector fit? Now, I am an owner of some big, thick cons, and I need to make sure that my cons fit in the hole. And they do. They fit in the hole, which is the only thing I really care about. All right. What else have we got on the outside? I mean, on the outside, it's fairly simple. I'll tell you right now that this is all aluminum. This, although this definitely looks like brass, this is not brass. This is also a piece of aluminum. There are two weights, one that goes through and one that's on the interior. Both of them are made out of aluminum. Now, prior to typing on this, I know we're a long ways from talking about typing feel and sound, but prior to typing on this, my very first reaction was, hey, why is this not brass? Give me brass. Brass is going to make it sound deeper. And then I typed on it. And then I was like, okay, I get it. Nope, keep it aluminum. Keep it aluminum. Absolutely keep it aluminum. So as we discussed in the intro, the front height, adjusted front height. So that means the front height between the foot and the start of the first keycap is 19.4 millimeters, which is fantastic, by the way. It sits very low, and with the little cherry-esque front lip, it helps to make it feel even lower than it actually is. Now, it is a light board, okay? And there are two schools of thought. I do like heavy boards, but when it comes to something like a 6G is something you want to be able to transport easily. So like the most I'd want a 6G to weigh is like 1.2 kilos built. And this weighs 1.162 kilos built. It's lightweight. It still has enough heft where you can tell, okay, you know, this isn't made out of plastic or anything. It is a decent weight. It is portable. It's not getting to the, 2 kilo mark where it's like full brass bottom and you're struggling to carry it around. And what if it slips out of your hand? It weighs so much, you're going to end up damaging it and damaging your foot, stuff like that. But yeah, that's it for the outside. The last thing we've got here on the outside is the feet. Check out those feet. Those are cute little feet. Those are very cute little feet. Let's check them in the macro cam. Look at that. So they're kind of like Matrix 1.2 OG feet. You know, the very, very small ones, except these don't fly off for no reason. So they're properly in there. They're properly in there, which is absolutely what you want to see. Now I'll tell you what you don't want to see. Where are the screws? Where are the screws, Simon? Simon, are you enjoying a screwless keyboard? Oh my God. Yep, this is screwless. Now, here's my beef with screwless, okay? One, it adds complexity. So that's machining complexity, which in this case, there's already a lot of curves, there's already a lot of machining complexity, so I doubt it affects the price much. Two is it affects the price. In this case, at this price point, at $265 for this, like clean anodization, good machining, 2 PCBs, 1 plate, so you can do a plateless and a plated build. It's got some cool stuff going on the inside. I don't think that's a terrible deal, especially considering it's in stock. Now, the third thing is, well, if I want to take it apart, I have to remember, hey, where are the screws? Which absolutely is a thing. It makes it incredibly annoying to, take apart and put together a keyboard. Now, generally, you're only doing that if there's a problem. However, going back to what I was just talking about, that this comes essentially with two builds. You can do a plateless build and you can do a plate build. Unfortunately, to take it apart, you need to have the mental faculties of a genius and remember where all the screws are. So let's try and remember where all the screws are, because the last time I actually worked with this was maybe like 5 weeks ago. So you guys may not know this, but when I review a board, I will type on it for at least 4 weeks full time prior to making up my mind about it. So I'll write down my notes. Okay, there is a screw right there. We did identify one screw. By the way, the last reason that I hate screwless is that the screws are shiny and you can see them between the caps. In this case, they did a good job. Do you guys see the screw? It's right there. So this is good screwless implementation. I would still prefer if it wasn't screwless, just for, you know, the ease of adjustment. But hey, what can you do? All right, we found another screw there, so that's 2 screws found. I think there's like one here, maybe. There is. To be fair, I'm not using my memory. I'm just using my logic of where would I hide screws, basically. So there's one right there. I assume there's going to be like one there, because if there's one here, then you're probably going to skip over doing the bottom left, and you're probably going to do it right here. Let's find out if I'm right. I am indeed. All right, so there's a screw there, which means there's also a screw, yep, there, which then means there's going to be a screw under the enter. Yep, and now I'm not sure if, oh, come on, buddy, come on. All right, I'm not sure if there are screws up here and down here. There might be a screw right here, but I'm going to trust myself fully and just assume that there are no screws there and see if this actually comes apart. So let's do it. We're going to use the screwdriver that came with the kit and see how that does. It is a nice touch. These are not great screws, by the way. We will, of course, do our screw review, as we do. They're stripping a little bit at the tip, which generally means that the coating on it, the black coating, I don't know, some sort of oxide, is starting to strip off, which it's fine. Again, see, I'm quite spoiled as a keyboard owner. Like, I've typed on like the finest of boards. I have access to incredibly nice things if I want. So I am incredibly spoiled. So when I see screws like these, I'm like, not loving it, but you know, if you put everything into, if you consider that, you know, this is a $260 board, should I really be complaining? Probably not. All right, let's see if I was correct, and that's all the screws. I was not correct. I was absolutely not correct. So there's probably a screw right between the 6 and 7. There is not. Okay. Is there a screw between the 8 and 9? There is. Okay. Yeah, I see what they've done. So there was a screw point here and here, but there's also a screw point here and here. It's a lot of screw points, but again, this is not for mounting. This is for actually holding the case together. So, see, this is the issue with screwless. Look how many caps I've had to remove just to take apart my board. Now imagine, you know, if I was typing on a switch and that switch was dead, and I'm like, oh no, I need to troubleshoot it. Well, I got to take all the crap off and then put it all back on once I'm done. It's just annoying. It's just annoying. And also, you also need to be incredibly careful when dealing with screwless boards. So you guys may not see the screws, but you can absolutely see where the screws are because I have gouged the 2 locations with my screwdriver. Yep, and that was the screwdriver that came with it, and I was as careful as I possibly could be, but like, you know, you're not supposed to be rubbing your screwdriver fishing around for a screw on top of anodization. That's another con of screwless. All right, now hopefully there's nothing under the spacebar, because that would be a terrible place to put a mount, honestly. And I know Vertex. Vertex are good people. Like, I mean, generally, board makers will not want to send me a board for review for a variety of reasons. One, I'm not very family friendly generally, and two, like, I'm gonna be like brutally honest. And also, like, I don't take free review units and whatnot. So like, if I don't like it, like, I need to ship it back, and they have to deal with it and stuff like that. So, all right, we got it. We got it. But Vertex historically have always listened to input. Okay, and this board has literally just one thing wrong with it that could be easily fixed. And it's not even the board, it's the PCB. So when we get to it, we'll get to it. But like, Vertex historically has always listened to input, and I do appreciate that. I appreciate a maker that'll actually send a review board for review, for actual criticism. I like, whether or not I make this video is irrelevant, because the goal of this is for me to figure out what's wrong and then report to them so they can fix it. You know, me making this video is just a bonus. So there's our top, get our top off. And there we go. Now, do we talk about the mount? No. Let's talk about what's actually going on inside the case first. Okay, so let's lift this up. Let's get the daughter board out, or the JST for the daughter board out. There we go. Nice. Okie dokie. So, first things first. Let's try and figure out what the hell is going on, like what is actually happening here. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on down here. I guess let's start at the top and work down. All right. So, first things first, at the very, very top, we can see the actual case screws. So where the top would screw into the bottom, we can see that there's tiny little alignment pillars, like little tiny alignment hugs right there. Let me get it on the macro cam so you guys can see what I'm talking about. All right, come on, buddy. All right, see that tiny little hug? Tiny little hug right there. Tiny little space where essentially the top comes in, makes good contact with the bottom, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these alignment pillars, which is good. It makes it feel stable, makes it feel firm, it makes you feel comfortable when you assemble it, because nothing's kind of sliding where it shouldn't be. You do like to see that. Additionally, we do see these raised parts. This is raised, this is raised, this is raised, this is raised. So why are all these things raised? Well, we'll come to that. I mean, interestingly enough, that's not where the gaskets go. So raised parts are here, gaskets are elsewhere. So, yep, your gasket theory, I know you were thinking it, is out. All right, next thing, we see these little, I don't know what these are called. They're alignment pins is what they're called. So these are the same alignment pins that were in the international version of the angle. The goal of this is it sits in the very corner of the case, like so. And when the PCB comes in and actually sits where it should sit, it prevents the PCB from drifting left and right. You see how when I move the assembly, the whole board moves instead of just this? Like, there's a little bit of movement, which is expected. But this prevents a couple things. It prevents the plate PCB drift onto the side where it may start contacting the edge of the case, because the gaskets holding onto this PCB are rather soft. So when I originally saw the idea of this, I thought this is a really stupid idea, because your PCB is going to literally be rubbing on a piece of rubber and you're going to feel it and it's going to feel really annoying. Fun fact, in a blind test, I could not tell the difference. In a blind test, I had at least like like at least 8 people, try both the angle as well as the arc, and nobody could tell. So these do the job very, very well, and it surprises me that they do the job very, very well. All right, further down, we have this. This is the JST cover. This has no purpose of being in this color. It's not a weight. It's made out of aluminum. But this covers up where the daughter board goes. In here, this is a replaceable little badge. So fun fact, the arcs are numbered. So I have unit 37, which is 73 backwards. All right. And here we can see the JST come down. We see that there's only sleeving on this part of the cable. There's no sleeving on this part of the cable. So I assume it's kind of tight in there. You can also see that there's a screw to kind of keep it in place. So once it makes the turn, it gets screwed in. Obviously, you don't put the screw like through a wire. You put it in between the wires. And it kind of keeps everything where it should be. Then we have this bit. This bit is the through weight. It's not a weight, but it does go through. Now, very, very small annoyance. This is my one annoyance with the case. Let's say I want to change the daughter board. Okay, let's say something went wrong with the daughter board. So let's unscrew this and see what happens. Also, the one screwdriver works for the weights as well. Weights, strong word. Which again is nice, but you know, I would have preferred a hard case. All right, so we've removed all the screws for the daughter board cable channel. So let's try and get that out, and it doesn't come out. Why doesn't it come out? Well, it turns out that this through weight is actually holding it in. So I gotta remove the literal through weight that goes through the board just to change my daughter board or to check my daughter board connections. Which again, kind of annoying. All right, there we go. Now I can pop out the weight, and then finally I can actually get at the cable channel. Now, if we look how little of an overlap there is, look at that. Look at that. So realistically, about that much material is keeping me from just removing this without having to remove this. It is annoying. It is annoying, okay? So now we can pop it out. There it is. And we can see underneath. So we can see that essentially it's just a piece of aluminum, a little bit machined out for the daughter board and for the JST. And that just covers it up. Now, the reason why we have something like this over a daughter board / JST assembly is for the acoustics. All right. One change, this is the first of like the 2 changes that I'd like to see, is please don't make this overlap. It's like 2 millimeters of overlap that prevent me from just servicing my board easily. Why? Why? Just shave this down. Shave it down a couple millimeters. Either one, doesn't matter. All right, now let's check out the screws. You guys thought I forgot. I didn't. I never forget. I never forgive. All right, so there's our screws. Not fantastic. There's also the short screws for the weight. Okay, you guys see how it's starting to get shiny right around the tip? Yeah, the coating is starting to wear off. They're all very small screws. To be fair though, they're not very reflective. They're very black, they're very dark. So when it comes to screwless, at the very least, you're never gonna see them, which is good. Which is good. Unless you're trying to like take it apart in the dark, then you've probably got bigger problems then. So that's the case bottom. Pretty interesting, right? Now let's check out the case top. All right, so here is the case top. Kind of busy, isn't it? All right, well, first of all, we've got the 1, 2, 3, 4, it's 8 or however many case mounting points. So very cool. But then we see additional screws. Why do we see screws in here? Why are there screws on the inside top? That makes no sense. Or does it? Now, some of you may have noticed, some of you may not have noticed. Well, this build is PCB mounted. That means the actual mounts are on the actual PCB, right? But let's say I wanted to build with a plate. Well, that plate would need to be higher, right? I can't mount them in the same spot, because if I were to mount a plate this low, I mean, the PCB would be so low, it would just contact the bottom of the case, right? And vice versa. If it was only plate mount, and I mounted the PCB where the plate is supposed to be, now everything is way higher than it should be, and all my caps are sticking out, and I can see my switch tops. So how do you deal with that? This is how you deal with that. This is a spacer. This is a spacer that goes in one of two ways. It can go in the plateless orientation, which is the orientation it is now, where essentially this bit here acts as a little bit of a bridge to space it. And if I wanted to, I could make this plate compatible. Now there are a lot of screws, but that's good. You kind of want that, and I'll explain why. But this is the first board that I have ever seen that actually allows you to do this, like comfortably, simply. This is a very, very good implementation where there is a mid piece. Now, generally, I'm not a big fan of mid pieces because a mid piece is a very small piece of metal, and a very small piece of metal introduced into a much larger thing is going to conduct vibrations and sounds at a high pitch, right? It's like small bell versus big bell. Small bell goes ding, big bell goes dong, right? So having a small piece, a small mid piece in a keyboard will generally overall make the board higher pitched. So I was kind of concerned about that. TLDR in this board, literally no effect. Literally no effect. Okay, so that should be all the screws out, and let's get the mid piece out. Is it all the screws out? Hello? Yes. All right. All right, come on, buddy. Let's see if we can get it out. There we go. We got it. So when I got this originally, and I pulled it out, I squeezed it. I squeezed it pretty hard. I'm like, haha, look, it's so soft and small, not realizing that I was just damaging the board, which is a classic Simon moment. So yeah, I kind of had to like bend it back so it would fit in there. So that's pretty cool. So this would be the side that would contact the PCB, and this would be the side that would contact the plate. So if I wanted to build it with a plate, I would put it in like so. And if I wanted to build it with a PCB, I would build it like so. I think this is like the coolest thing ever. It is. Love that. But yeah, this is like surprisingly thin. I'm afraid to like even put the tiniest bit of pressure on it. But anyway, this sits so flush that there's, I don't know how Vertex is doing this, by the way, but like once we get into like acoustics and once you hear it for yourself, you're going to be shocked. Remember earlier when I said, listen, I thought this needed brass? No, it doesn't. This is the deepest sounding 6G. This is the deepest sounding all aluminum 6G, is part one of that statement. And I think this is the deepest 6G I have ever heard, ever. Like without like filling it full of foam and bullshit. It's very deep. And I have no idea how they've actually gotten there, given that it's all aluminum, given that there's a mid piece, given that it's PCB mount. Have you ever heard like a low pitch PCB mount? I sure hadn't. So, I guess next up is the PCB. So we're gonna complain about that a lot. All right. I'm going to remove the top. We're going to just deal with the bottom for now. Okay, so when I originally got this, this came flashed with VIA L, which is great. I prefer VIA L to VIA. I don't have to upload JSONs. I don't have to go grab firmware. I don't need an internet connection. I can have tap dance. I can have longer macros. Love VIA L. But there was a problem with it. So it turns out in the firmware, it was just incredibly bitchy when connected via a hub. And I use a hub here at my desk, so I can, just swap out whatever cables I want without having to crawl underneath my desk. So it would only work sometimes. And Vertex just thought that like I had a dead board or a dead daughter board. So I replaced the daughter board, still same issue. They corrected the firmware. Unfortunately, the corrected firmware is VIA only, not VIA L, which kind of sucks. But hey, what can you do? What can you actually do? So updated firmware works just fine. My issue is as follows, okay? Let's plug this in. And this is a issue that I have with, actually, before we plug it in, let's check out this PCB because I'm about to start complaining about this. All right, it's simple, it's clean, it's green, it's not bad, okay? Now, some of you might notice this switch right here. Now this switch, you're never gonna see this if you're using an ATmega controller. What is this for? This is for an ARM controller to put it into bootloader mode. There are many ways of doing that, but that is one way. I hate ARM. ARM is super annoying. Why is ARM super annoying, Simon? Well, let's do a little science experiment, okay? Now, I'm not even gonna use the ARC. I am going to use the CRIN, which also uses an ARM, okay? There's our CRIN. Let me get literally anything else to test. What is small? Do I have anything small? All right, we have a CRIN. And we have another board. All right, let's check out the CRIN. So let's go right. How do I not? 1 second. Let's just open up Notepad. You guys may already be able to tell what I'm about to show you. Okay. Let's go into detective mode. Okay, let's remove our overlay and let's get our overhead. Okay, there's our overhead. Okay, check this out. I want to show you my issue with ARM controllers. Okay, board is unplugged. All right, and board is plugged. That's how long it takes to boot. That is infuriating because its job is to be a keyboard. That is way too damn long. Let me try a real keyboard that doesn't use a nonsense controller. All right, you guys ready? And it types. That's it. The second it's in, it types. The second it's in, it types. Now, the ARC is very similar. This is incredibly, incredibly annoying because let's say hypothetically, not hypothetically because this actually happened, I'm using a board that uses an ARM controller. I need to enter BIOS of a server, which like the little window is very short. I literally can't. I literally cannot use my keyboard as a keyboard. So I tried to enter BIOS in my server with this and I just couldn't. So I spent $265, theoretically, if I purchased this, on a defective keyboard. Because if it cannot instantly input when plugged in, then it's not a keyboard, okay? Now, I have a lot of other keyboards. It's fine. I can just use another board. But imagine if it was my only board. What then? My computer is dead forever. You see that annoyance? So same thing with the ARC. Let me plug in the ARC. All right, it's plugged in. Let's go again into detective mode, so you guys see. All right, it's in. Not as slow as the crate, but it is slow. Okay, again. That is way too damn long, okay? That is way too damn long. It's annoying at best and literally pushes it into the realm of a defective keyboard at worst. So that is my second complaint, okay? Please stop using ARM controllers if they take this long to boot. Like, there are advantages to ARM controllers which are very nice. Like I can hold like a button and plug it in and it opens up as a mass storage device, and I can literally just drop new firmware in it. It's very easy. You don't actually need anything to flash it. Like, you don't need any tools or anything. But like, I have seen ARM powered boards take a solid 5 or 6 seconds to boot. That's stupid, okay? That is very stupid. Okay, so we complained about the PCB. Let's talk about the typing feel, okay? Now, I'm gonna have to fully assemble it to basically showcase the actual feel of the board. So I'll do that off camera. This is gonna be a long enough video anyways. All right, I'll see you boys in a sec. All right. Now, while we're doing this, you may notice that I actually built this with JWK Alpacas. You guys are like, oh my God. Simon is actually using JWKs in a build? Did he slip and hit his head? What happened? Well, remember how I told you guys that this board sounds really deep? Yeah, I wasn't kidding. This board sounds really deep. Like, kind of wildly so, to the point where I was able to get away with putting alpacas in here. Now, I know alpacas are not the highest pitch of JWKs, but honestly, it is a very good fit. Now, I know that from my last bit of complaints, it may seem like I'm being hard on the board. I'm not. This is a fantastic board. I like it very much, okay? 3, 4, and boom. All right, here we are. We have our ARC all set up. Now let's talk about the typing feel, then we'll talk about the sound, then we'll do a typing test, then I'll give you my summary, then I'll come to your house and kiss your alligator. Okay, let's talk about flex first. Now, this is PCB mount, okay? As a result, it should flex, right? Now, the majority of the flex sits in the center of the board, right here. So this is not me pressing hard. This is me pressing normal. This is me pressing harder. This is as hard as I would realistically press the keyboard in real life. But if I were to go all the way, I can actually reach the bottom of the case, which, okay. Center of the board allows for a good amount of flex. Again, this is normal pressing. This is hard pressing. This is obscenely hard pressing. Nobody's gonna press this hard, okay? Now, I'll do the same on the far side. Again, I'm gonna press the center of the board. I'm gonna get closer, key by key, until we reach the edge. So, edge test, boom, boom. All right, and standard typing test. So that's good. We're seeing flex. We're not seeing bounce. That's what we should be seeing. That means when I press this key, this part should go down. The edge should stay relatively stable. Now, I personally like this. I like the feel. Now, my good friend Alessio typed on this when he was visiting me in Dubai, and he didn't like how inconsistent it felt, because here is kind of stiff, here is slightly less stiff, here is big flex, here is mega big flex, and here is all the flex. Generally, flexi boards are not consistent. It's really, really hard to get a consistent flex. I mean, not really, really hard, but it's hard to get consistent flex. And Vertex has made a decision, and that is to make the spacebar as flexy as possible. I personally love that. Remember that spacebar bias is a thing. If your spacebar feels incredibly hard, then the rest of the build feels incredibly hard to your brain, even though it's not. If your spacebar is loud, then the board sounds loud. If the spacebar is, I don't know, whatever, take blank and put blank, and that's how it works. I typed on this for a while, and I'm not a big 60% enjoyer, okay? I struggle to use 60s, especially at work, because I like having dedicated arrows. I like having dedicated navigation. Having to use HHKB arrows is kind of rough when you're at work, for me at least. But I used this for about 5 weeks, or 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks at the office, and it was good. I enjoyed it. It was very enjoyable, and the thing that made it the most enjoyable for me was not the layout, was not the design, it was the typing feel and the sound. Now, let's remember the triangle, the keyboard trifecta, where you have aesthetics, sound, and feel. And for a keyboard to be S tier or A tier, it needs to have a very good combination of feel, sound, and aesthetics. Now, this feel is absolutely for me. I love this feel. May not be for you, okay? If you're not super big into flex, well, you can do an additional build. The nice thing is you can do a plateless build, get your flex out of there, and then you've got your PCB and your hot swap, you've got your plate and your hot swap PCB that you can just put right in. Obviously, it's a little bit of a pain. You got to take some caps off, but to be fair, you're going to take all the caps off if you're switching plates and PCBs. So the sound is very deep for what it is. For a 60% that is all aluminum, this is insanely deep sounding, which tells me that it was the right move to have the foam as a completely separate paid add-on. I like that. And then from a feel perspective, although slightly inconsistent, because of course it's a flexy 60%, you're not going to get perfect flex out of a 60 no matter how hard you try. I liked it. It's very comfortable to type on. It's not aggressive. It's not fatiguing. You could probably get away with whatever switches you want, because I was able to put JWKs in here and it still felt and sounded real good. So pretty much anything would work in this realistically, in the plateless variant. Now, I assume that, other reviewers have done it with plates, because no culture. But plateless, ooh, this goes hard. I would never build this with a plate personally, especially considering that I would be using the hot swap PCB. Not the biggest fan of hot swap PCBs. They're super annoying to work with. Things fall out. It's not sturdy. It sounds kind of different. You end up, bending pins or breaking sockets, and you're not having a good time. The best form factor for hot swap is a TKL. For example, this Keychron K8. This is hot swap. It's great. I can put whatever switches I want, break them in, try them out, and have a good time. This is not the platform for that. Anyway, what would I recommend in terms of actual build in this? So you guys will hear a typing test of ABS on Alpacas on plateless. It's basically like the highest pitch version of this build possible, because going with a plate would make it sound a little bit deeper. Going with deeper sounding switches like Milky Tops or Get Pros or whatever would sound deeper. And then going with PBT instead of ABS would again sound deeper. So take that into account when you hear this. because all along I've been saying, oh, this sounds really deep. Oh, this sounds really deep. But this build is basically trying to erase as much of that as possible. So this is it in its highest pitch state, unless like I was going to go with like DCS and like, I don't know, Zeal switches unlubed, but I'm not an insane person, so. Pretty much anything would work. If you're trying to take advantage of the depth of the sound, first of all, right off the bat, do not get the foam. Do not get the foam. Do not get the foam. Okay? This is a nice board. It's well acoustically tuned. Vertex actually did a good job of making this board sound good. If you put foam in this, I will find you and I will hit you. Okay? So don't do that. Foam something else, okay? Foam something else. This actually has a personality to it, a good sound to it. Don't screw that up, all right? Second of all, whether you're gonna go plateless or whether you're gonna go plated, if you wanna really deepen it up, again, something like GAT Pros, maybe MX Blacks, where you lube the top and bottom with either 204 or 205, Milky Tops, the usual suspects, if you want it nice and deep, right? And then obviously you want to throw in some CRP or some Xiaomi or some Shenpo, some PBT. It could be cheap PBT, it could be fancy PBT, up to you. So as long as it's nice, thick PBT. And then if you get this and the sound is a little bit too boomy for you, a little bit too low pitched, you can try and thin it out. You can go with all black housing Gaterons. You can go with JWKs. You can go with cherries, but don't lube the tops, for example. Obviously, you can go with ABS, or if you want to take it to the next level, you can go with DCS, ABS as well. It's really up to you. This gives you a good platform to actually build a pretty nice 60 out of. And I do like that. From a feel perspective, if you're going to go plateless, linears are great. Tactiles could potentially be great in there, even though I'm not a big MX tactile enjoyer. If you were going to go with some low-weight tactiles, like some Ergo Clears or some nice Hyperglide Browns, something like that, you could absolutely make this work. The flex is actually comfy and having a little bit of tactility with the flex. If you're a tactile enjoyer, yeah, I see that working. Clicky, absolutely not, unfortunately. It's a deep, nice sounding board. If you're gonna also throw clickies in there, you're gonna get a mismatch. The music won't play well together. They're incompatible instruments realistically. It's like trying to, I don't know, I can't think of a good example, but you get the idea. The case is really deep sounding and you're gonna go in with, clicks, especially plateless. I'm not loving it. If you're gonna go with a plate build, I obviously suggest you don't use the hot swap PCB. Unless you're testing out switches or something, then yeah, fine, you can go hot swap. But for a final build, go with the solder PCB. It's got good layout support, like pretty much everything but the kitchen sink in terms of layout support, which is split spacebar basically. You can do everything else. You have ISO, split backspace, split everything. I think for something like that, you could get a little bit more experimental. You could throw some TTCs in there, some SP stars. You could go a little wild. This is the kind of board where you kind of want to play around with switches. I mean, I put Alpacas in there, right? And I would never use Alpacas. So this is the kind of board that has a unique enough sound signature where it actually motivates you to try other switches. Like, for example, my Jaguar. Jaguar is so unique that I put SP stars in it on a 2mm polycarbonate plate, and it was great. So this is absolutely a board that would allow you to explore feelings and sounds you've never really gone for. And when we talk about the board as a platform, considering the price point of like $265 in stock, that's great. That's honestly great. So yeah. I guess we'll do a proper typing test. Again, keep in mind that this is a very high-pitched version of a low-pitched board, so keep that in mind. We'll do that, and then I'll give you my summary. Alrighty, sound test is out of the way. I hope you guys can kind of get what I was talking about. Again, remember, kind of a high-pitched build in a low-pitched environment. So it should kind of just like sound like a keyboard, I guess. By the way, I did a lot of work on my sound testing environment. It's been a while. So like it took some tuning to get it to sound on the mics like it does in real life. And I just had my headphones on. I confirmed that is how it sounds. This particular unit sounds in this particular environment, sounds exactly like you're hearing it. But you could get it a lot deeper if you wanted to. You could also potentially get a little bit higher pitched if you wanted to. So let's talk summary, okay? Now, you guys know the rules of my YouTube reviews. If I want to keep something, I need to pay for it. I will be keeping this. I will be purchasing this. And full disclosure, Vertex has offered me a 50% discount. Now, generally, I don't take discounts or anything for free. I will take the discount. I will take the equivalent amount of the discount, which I think is $133, and I'm going to be putting that into the Thoctober giveaway fund. So I'll be pulling it out of my pocket and adding it to the stream giveaway fund. That way it's as if I paid full price for the board. And also, you know, somebody gets to benefit. This is great. This is great. My only 2 qualms about it, or I guess 3, knowing that Vertex actually does listen to feedback. Hard case, please, hard case, please, or a sleeve, something, because a lot of us like travel and like go to the office and come back, and like throwing this in my backpack with no protection is not how I want to do that. I want some sort of protection if I ever want to take my keyboard. And for the price that you're paying for your very fancy box, give me something that helps me instead of something that literally just creates garbage. Thing number 2, the very small overlap of the through weight on top of the JST panel. It's just really annoying that like if I want to service my daughter board, I have to remove the outer weight. That makes no sense. And it's just like a couple millimeters that just need to be changed in the machining and everything works. And then finally, please, for the love of God, stop using ARM controllers. Get a nice AT Mega. The prices are back down again. The price differential between, you know, an ARM MCU and an AT Mega MCU, like a 32U4, is not huge these days. It's cents. It's cents. And it really annoys me that I plug in a keyboard and that keyboard takes time to boot. It's a keyboard. It's an input device. Imagine if you plugged in your mouse and it took like 10 seconds to start working. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. So either, you know, ARM firmware needs to be developed to the point where, you know, it boots instantaneously, or we just stop using ARM for keyboards. That aside, all right? This is the best sounding 60% pretty much ever, all right? Feel-wise, I really like this. I like flex, okay? I like flex. I like bounce, but I prefer flex. Like, if we look at like the actual boards that I own, I'll generally go for a flexi build, and I really do like this. I'll probably keep the Alpacas in here, honestly, and just swap to a more basic key set because memes. So yeah, so here's what I suggest for you. If you can pick one of these up for around $265, yeah, go for it. If there's going to be a subsequent round, and if there is, I will write it in the description or the pinned comment of this video. Hopefully, they should be making some of the improvements. Again, Vertex is a nice bunch of people that know what they're doing and will actually listen to feedback, which is great. So absolutely consider one of these if you want a 60%. That's relatively lightweight with decent finishing, solid sound, solid feel. Solid enough for me to actually want it. Like, the list of 60s I have is very small, with the exception of like the Duck Viper. I don't really have other 60s. The K doesn't count. That one is just a showpiece. That's pretty much it. And we don't talk about that one. That one doesn't exist. But yeah, like, of my own choice, I have bought 260s my entire life, which is the Viper and this. And it's good. The Viper is also good for its own reasons. This is good for very, very different reasons. Absolutely, absolutely go for the Arc. In terms of 60%, from a value perspective, I'd rate this like an 8.5 to 9 out of 10. It's still not at the point where it's just like a no-brainer to buy, but it's close. From a feel perspective, I give this, again, maybe like an 8 or 9. Probably closer to 8 because it's not for everyone, but for me it's a 10. For most people, it's probably closer to an 8 or less if, you know, a little bit of inconsistency with PCB flex is going to be annoying to you. Maybe it's not for you. From a sound perspective, 10. Absolutely 10. This thing has no right in hell to sound as good as it does, and I have no idea how Vertex is doing it. All my keyboard design, like voices in my head are just screaming, how is this possible? How is this possible? What is this dark magic? So yeah, solid board. If it's good enough for me, it's probably good enough for you. Keep in mind that I absolutely hate 60%. So probably consider. This keyboard is lit. All right, that's the video. Hopefully I didn't forget anything. If I forgot anything, please yell at me very loudly in the comments. And if I didn't miss anything, please yell at me very loudly in the comments. Thank you all for watching. If you like the video, give me a thumb. And if you extra like the video, give me a thumb and hop in the Discord and maybe become a patron someday. All right, I'll see you guys next week for part 3 of the Real Talk combo, which should be things I miss about the keyboard hobby. All right? All right. Salad.